The text message arrived at exactly 3:47 a.m., lighting up my phone screen like a neon sign in the darkness of our bedroom. Jennifer was sound asleep beside me, her breathing steady and peaceful, completely unaware that our 15-year marriage was about to explode into 1,000 pieces. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. Mike will never suspect a thing. You drive me crazy, baby. T. I stared at those words until they burned themselves into my retinas. My hands started shaking as I read them again, then a third time, hoping somehow I'd misunderstood. But there it was, clear as day on Jennifer's phone, which she'd carelessly left charging on my side of the nightstand. Mike will never suspect a thing. Mike. That's me. Mike Thompson, 43 years old, owner of Thompson's Auto Repair on Maple Street, the guy who apparently never suspects anything. I set the phone down carefully, my mind racing faster than a souped-up Camaro on an empty highway. Jennifer stirred beside me, mumbling something in her sleep about quarterly reports. Even unconscious, she was thinking about work. Her precious job at Midwest Financial Services, where she'd been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 5 years, where she'd apparently been climbing more than just ladders. The rational part of my brain told me to wake her up, demand an explanation, have it out right here and now, but something darker, colder, settled in my chest, a voice that whispered, "Not yet, not until you know everything." I slipped out of bed, grabbed some clothes, and headed downstairs to my workshop. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal shavings usually calmed me, but tonight everything felt different, tainted. I pulled out my laptop and started doing what any betrayed husband in the digital age does. I started digging. Jennifer's social media accounts were locked down tight, but she'd always been careless with passwords. Her birthday, our anniversary, our daughter's name, Sophie, now 20 and away at State University, probably partying instead of studying like she promised. The third guess got me into her email. What I found there made my stomach turn. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Months of messages. Months of planning. Months of laughing at the stupid husband who worked with his hands while she worked with her brain. The stupid husband who trusted his wife when she said she was working late. The stupid husband who never questioned why she suddenly needed to attend so many weekend conferences. Tom Bradley, her assistant manager. A pretty boy with perfect teeth and a college degree who probably never had grease under his fingernails in his entire pampered life. 28 years old, according to his company bio. Young enough to make a middle-aged woman feel desirable again. I read every message, torturing myself with the details. How they'd started as work friends. How friendship turned to flirtation. How flirtation turned to afternoon meetings at the Riverside Inn on the outskirts of town. How they'd planned to wait until after the holidays to handle the Mike situation. The Mike situation. That's what I'd become in my own marriage. By the time dawn broke through my workshop windows, I'd made a decision. Jennifer and Tom thought they were so clever, so sophisticated, planning their little romance while the dumb mechanics stayed oblivious. They thought Mike Thompson was just another blue-collar guy who'd roll over and take whatever scraps they threw him. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. I heard footsteps on the stairs above. Jennifer, getting ready for another day of playing the devoted wife while planning my destruction. I closed the laptop and picked up a wrench, pretending to work on the transmission I'd been rebuilding for Mrs. Patterson's old Buick. "Mike, you're up early." Jennifer appeared in the doorway, already dressed in one of her sharp business suits. She looked beautiful, professional, completely put together, the perfect image of a successful woman, the perfect image of a liar. "Couldn't sleep," I said without looking up. "Figured I'd get some work done." She walked over and kissed the top of my head, the same gesture she'd made 1,000 times before. Now it felt like a betrayal all its own. "Don't forget we're having dinner with my sister tonight. Melissa's bringing her new boyfriend." Melissa, Jennifer's younger sister, the one who'd never liked me from day one, the one who always made little comments about how Jennifer could have done better, married someone with more ambition, more class. I wondered if she knew about Tom. Probably. Women like Melissa always knew the gossip first. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, finally meeting her eyes. She smiled, completely unaware that I knew everything. "Love you," she said, heading back upstairs. "Love you too," I replied automatically. But as I watched her go, I realized something had fundamentally changed inside me. The love was still there, buried under layers of hurt and rage, but it was transforming into something else. Something harder. Something that wanted justice. I spent the day working on cars and planning. Every oil change, every brake job, every routine repair gave me time to think, to plot, to consider my options. I could confront them directly, but that would only give them time to spin the story. Make me the bad guy. The controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. The Neanderthal who resorted to violence when his fragile ego got bruised. I could file for divorce immediately, but that would mean splitting everything down the middle. Giving Jennifer half of the business I'd built from nothing. Half of everything I'd worked for while she was spreading her legs for pretty boy Tom. Or I could be smarter, patient, strategic. By closing time, I knew what I had to do. Jennifer and Tom wanted to play games? Fine. But they were about to discover that Mike Thompson knew how to play too. And unlike them, I played to win. That evening, I sat across from Melissa and her new boyfriend, some finance guy named Derek who kept checking his phone every 5 minutes, and played the role of the devoted husband. I asked Jennifer about her day, complimented her dress, refilled her wine glass when it got low. All the while, I watched her, studied her, looking for tells, for weaknesses, for anything I could use. She was good, I had to admit. No nervous glances, no guilty fidgeting. She laughed at Derek's boring stories about market trends and asked Melissa about her new apartment downtown. But I caught her checking her phone when she thought no one was looking, saw the tiny smile that crossed her lips when she read whatever message had just come in. Probably Tom, telling her how much he missed her, how he couldn't wait for their next rendezvous. "So, Mike," Melissa said, cutting into my observations. "Jennifer tells me business has been slow lately." I looked at my wife, who was suddenly very interested in her salad. "Did she now?" "Well, you know how it is," Jennifer said quickly. "The economy, competition from those chain places." "Actually, business has been great," I said calmly. "Best year we've ever had. I'm thinking about expanding, maybe opening a second location." The look that flashed across Jennifer's face was priceless. Surprise followed quickly by calculation. She was probably wondering how much money I had that she didn't know about, how much she might be entitled to in a divorce. "That's wonderful," Derek said, finally looking up from his phone. "You know, if you need financing, I work with several banks that specialize in small business loans." "Thanks, but I prefer to keep things simple. Cash only, no debt." I smiled at Jennifer. Amazing what you can accomplish when you keep your expenses low and your focus clear. Melissa frowned, clearly disappointed that she couldn't needle me about financial struggles. "Well, I'm sure Jennifer's income helps. Corporate jobs are so much more stable than manual labor." "Jennifer's job is very important to her," I agreed. "She puts in long hours, works weekends, really goes above and beyond, very dedicated to her projects." Jennifer's cheeks flushed slightly, but she kept her composure. "I just believe in doing quality work." "Quality work," I repeated, raising my wine glass. "Here's to quality work and to people who really know how to commit to what they're doing." We all clinked glasses, but I was the only one who knew what we were really toasting. After dinner, as we said our goodbyes in the restaurant parking lot, Melissa pulled Jennifer aside for a private conversation. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Melissa glance at me several times with that disapproving look she'd perfected over the years. On the drive home, Jennifer was quiet, staring out the passenger window at the passing streetlights. "Penny for your thoughts," I said. "Just tired. Long day at work." "How's Tom settling in? Still learning the ropes?" I felt her tense beside me, just slightly. "He's doing fine. Very eager. Very energetic." "I bet he is. Young guys like that, they're always ready for anything." "He's professional," she said quickly. "Very focused on his career." "Good for him. It's important to know what you want and go after it, don't you think?" She turned to look at me then, and for just a moment I saw uncertainty in her eyes, like she was trying to figure out if I meant something more than I was saying. "Yes," she said finally. "I think people should fight for what they want." "Absolutely," I agreed, pulling into our driveway. "Sometimes the best offense is a good offense." That night, after Jennifer fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling and finalizing my plans. Phase 1 would start tomorrow. By the time I was done, Jennifer and Tom would understand exactly what kind of man they'd chosen to betray. They wanted the Mike situation handled? Fine. But they were about to learn that some situations fight back. The next morning, I watched Jennifer leave for work from my shop window, noting the extra care she'd taken with her appearance. New perfume, the expensive stuff she usually saved for special occasions, hair styled in soft waves instead of her usual professional bun. She was dressing for him now, not for me. Perfect. I waited exactly 30 minutes, then made my first call. "Ray's boxing gym. Ray speaking." "Ray, it's Mike Thompson. Remember me?" "Mike, holy hell, haven't heard from you in years. How's married life treating you?" Ray Kowalski had been my best friend in high school, back when we both thought we were tough enough to go professional in the ring. Life had other plans. I discovered I had a talent for fixing engines, and Ray opened a gym that became the unofficial headquarters for every piece of gossip in our part of town. If you wanted to know who was cheating on whom, who was having money troubles, or who was about to get fired, Ray's was the place to find out. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. You got time for coffee? For you? Always. Meet me at Donna's Diner in 20. Donna's Diner sat on the corner of Main and 3rd, a greasy spoon that served the best coffee and worst food in town. Ray was already waiting in a corner booth when I arrived, his massive frame making the vinyl seat look like doll furniture. At 55, he still looked like he could go 10 rounds with guys half his age. "You look like hell," he said as I slid across from him. "Feel worse. Jennifer's having an affair." Ray's coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips. "You sure?" I pulled out my phone and showed him some of the tamer messages I'd screenshotted. His expression darkened as he read. "Tom Bradley," he said finally. "Pretty boy from her office?" "You know him?" "Know of him. Comes into the gym sometimes, tries to impress the ladies with his fancy workout gear and protein shakes. Soft hands, softer gut. What's your plan?" This was why I'd called Ray. No judgment, no lectures about working things out or going to counseling. Just straight to business. "I need information. Everything you can find out about Tom, about Jennifer's routine, about who knows what, and I need it quiet." Ray grinned, the same predatory smile he'd worn before every fight in our amateur days. "Consider it done. What else?" "I need to get back in fighting shape. Been too long since I've been in the ring." "Planning to beat the pretty boy to a pulp?" "Nothing that simple. But I need to be ready for whatever comes next. And I need to be around people who understand that sometimes a man has to stand up for himself." Ray nodded slowly. "Gym's open 24 hours. You still remember the combinations?" "Some things you never forget." We shook hands across the table, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not for reconciliation. That ship had sailed the moment Jennifer decided to betray 15 years of marriage. But hope for justice, for dignity, for proving that Mike Thompson wasn't the pushover they thought he was. I spent the rest of the day working and thinking, my hands busy with routine repairs, while my mind planned more complex projects. Around 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." Love you. The casual cruelty of those words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was probably sending the same message to Tom, except his version would be about sneaking away early for another afternoon at their cheap motel. At 5:30, I locked up the shop and drove to Ray's gym. The familiar smell of sweat and leather hit me as soon as I walked through the door. A few guys were working the heavy bags, their rhythmic pounding creating a percussion soundtrack that matched my mood perfectly. "Look what the cat dragged in," called out Jimmy Martinez from across the room. Jimmy had been a regular here since before I got married, a lightweight who never quite made it pro, but could still teach younger guys a thing or two about footwork. "Hey, Jimmy, mind if I work in?" "Be my guest. Fair warning, though. You're going to feel it tomorrow." He was right. After 20 minutes on the heavy bag, my shoulders burned and my knuckles ached despite the gloves. But it felt good. Clean. Honest. Every punch was a release. Every combination a small victory against the rage building inside me. "Easy there, tough guy," Ray said, appearing beside me with a towel. "Save some energy for when you really need it." "How's the information gathering going?" "Fast. Tom's not as smart as he thinks. Pays for everything with credit cards, posts his location on social media, brags to anyone who'll listen about his complicated situation with an older woman, kids practically begging to get caught." "What about Jennifer?" Ray's expression grew more serious. "That's where it gets interesting. She's been careful, but not careful enough. Your wife's been moving money, Mike. Small amounts, different accounts. Nothing obvious, but it adds up." "How much?" "Best guess? Around $15,000 over the past 6 months. Could be more. $15,000. Money from our joint accounts, money I'd earned fixing cars and trucks while she played house with her boy toy. Money she was probably planning to use for their new life together once they handled the Mike situation." "There's more," Ray continued. "Melissa knows. Your sister-in-law has been covering for Jennifer, providing alibis, even helped her open one of the new accounts." Of course she did. Melissa had been waiting years for Jennifer to wise up and dump the blue-collar husband who wasn't good enough for her precious sister. This was probably the best news she'd heard since her own divorce. "What else?" "Tom's got a gambling problem. Poker games, sports betting, online casinos. He's in deep with some people who don't take IOUs. Word is he needs cash fast, or he's going to have bigger problems than an angry husband. The pieces were falling into place. Tom wasn't just sleeping with my wife for love, he needed her money. And Jennifer wasn't just having a midlife crisis, she was being played by a desperate man who saw her as his meal ticket. I worked out for another hour, pushing my body until the physical pain overwhelmed the emotional ache. By the time I got home, Jennifer's car was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, heating up leftover Chinese food. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up. "Productive. Yours?" "Long meeting with the regional managers. Tom had some great ideas for streamlining our processes." "I bet he did. He seems like a real problem solver." She glanced at me sharply, but I was already heading for the refrigerator, my expression neutral. "I ran into Ray Kowalski today," I said casually, grabbing a beer. "Remember Ray? We used to box together." "Vaguely." "He invited me to start working out again. Thinks I need a hobby." "That's nice." Her tone was carefully disinterested, but I caught her studying my reflection in the microwave door. "Yeah, should be fun. Ray knows everyone in town, hears all the gossip. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you're just another guy at the gym." Jennifer's shoulders tensed slightly. "Well, you know how I feel about gossip." "Right. Anyway, I'm thinking about making it a regular thing. Good to have somewhere to blow off steam, you know?" I kissed her cheek and headed upstairs, leaving her alone with her reheated Chinese food and her guilty conscience. Let her wonder what Ray might have told me. Let her lie awake tonight trying to figure out if her secret was still safe. Because tomorrow, Phase 2 would begin. And by the time I was finished, Jennifer and Tom would discover that the Mike situation was a lot more complicated than they'd bargained for. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face for the first time in weeks. Friday morning brought the first real test of my resolve. Jennifer was in the shower when her phone buzzed with a text message. Without hesitation, I picked it up. "Can't wait for this weekend. Told my roommate I'm visiting my sick aunt. We'll have the whole cabin to ourselves. Tea." A cabin weekend. How romantic. How perfectly predictable. I memorized the message and set the phone back down just as the shower turned off. Jennifer emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, humming some pop song under her breath. She looked happy, relaxed, glowing with the anticipation of her secret getaway. "Any plans this weekend?" I asked, not looking up from my coffee. "Actually, yes. Melissa wants me to drive up to the lake with her. Girl time, you know? We haven't had a chance to really talk in months." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly I almost admired her skill. 15 years of marriage, and I was just now discovering what a talented actress my wife really was. "That sounds nice. When are you leaving?" "This afternoon, right after work. We'll probably stay until Sunday evening." Perfect. That gave me plenty of time to set my trap. After Jennifer left for work, I called Ray. "I need a favor," I said without preamble. "Name it." "I need to borrow your truck and your camera equipment. The good stuff, with a telephoto lens." Ray had been documenting fights at his gym for years, building up an archive of local boxing matches. His equipment was professional grade, the kind that could capture clear images from a considerable distance. "This about what I think it's about?" "Jennifer's going away for the weekend, with Tom. I need proof." "Mike, you sure you want to go down this road? Once you have pictures, you can't unsee them." I thought about that for a moment. Did I really want images of my wife with another man burned into my memory forever? Did I want to watch her betray our marriage vows in real time? "I need to know everything," I said finally. "No surprises, no gaps in the story. When this is over, I want to control the narrative completely." "All right, but you're not going alone. I'll drive." "Ray, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm telling. Pick me up at 6. At exactly 5:47 p.m., I watched Jennifer's car pull out of our driveway. She'd changed into casual clothes, jeans, a soft sweater, boots, the kind of outfit that said weekend getaway with my lover rather than sisterly bonding time. She'd even packed an overnight bag, which she'd hidden in her trunk that morning when she thought I wasn't looking. Ray was waiting outside his gym when I arrived, a large camera bag slung over his shoulder and a thermos of coffee in his hand. "You ready for this?" he asked as he climbed into the passenger seat. "Been ready since I found out." We followed Jennifer's car at a safe distance, staying back far enough to avoid detection but close enough to track her route. She drove north out of town, toward the Lake District where wealthy city folks kept their summer cabins. After about 40 minutes, she turned into the parking lot of a small grocery store. "Provisioning for the weekend," Ray observed as we watched her emerge with 2 bags of groceries and a bottle of wine. Tom was waiting for her by the store's entrance, and even from across the parking lot I could see the way they embraced. Not the casual hug of coworkers or friends, but the desperate clutch of lovers who'd been apart too long. His hands roamed her back possessively, and she pressed herself against him like she was trying to merge their bodies into one. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest as I watched my wife of 15 years kiss another man with a passion she hadn't shown me in months. "Got it," Ray said quietly, the camera's shutter clicking rapidly. "Clean shots, good lighting." They separated and got into Tom's car, a flashy red sports car that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Jennifer left her own vehicle in the store parking lot. Smart, since anyone looking for her would expect to find her car wherever she was supposed to be. We followed Tom's car deeper into the Lake District, winding through narrow roads lined with expensive vacation homes. Eventually, he turned into the driveway of a modest A-frame cabin nestled among tall pine trees. Through the camera's telephoto lens, we watched them unload groceries and luggage, laughing and touching each other constantly. "Whose cabin?" I asked. Ray lowered the camera. "Registered to a Bradley family trust. Probably Tom's parents' place." So he was taking my wife to his family cabin, using his parents' property to conduct his affair. The disrespect was staggering. We found a position about 200 yards away, hidden among the trees but with a clear view of the cabin's main windows. Ray set up his equipment like a professional surveillance operation, which I supposed it was. For the next hour, we documented everything. Jennifer and Tom cooking dinner together, sharing wine on the deck, dancing in the living room to music we couldn't hear. They looked like newlyweds, giddy with romance and the thrill of stolen time. "This is enough," Ray said as the sun began to set. "We've got what you need." But I couldn't tear myself away. Some masochistic part of me needed to see it all, to witness the complete destruction of my marriage with my own eyes. As darkness fell, lights came on inside the cabin. Through the bedroom window, we watched Jennifer and Tom embrace, their silhouettes merging in ways that made my stomach turn. I'd seen enough. "Let's go," I said. The drive home was silent, except for the radio playing classic rock at low volume. Ray didn't offer empty comfort or false hope, and I was grateful for that. There was nothing to say that would make this better, nothing that would undo what I'd witnessed. Back in my own house, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories and accumulated possessions, the reality of my situation hit me with full force. My marriage was over, not just damaged or troubled, but completely, irrevocably finished. Jennifer had made her choice, and it wasn't me. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat in my recliner, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. We'd looked so young, so hopeful, so certain that we'd beat the odds and make it work forever. Jennifer in her white dress, radiant with joy. Me in my rented tuxedo, grinning like I'd won the lottery. Maybe I had won for a while. 15 good years, a beautiful daughter, a successful business. But lotteries don't last forever, and apparently neither did marriages. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Having a great time with Melissa. Love you. Love you." There were those words again, meaningless now, except as weapons designed to twist the knife deeper. I typed back, "Glad you're enjoying yourself. Love you too." 2 could play the lying game. Saturday dragged by in a haze of routine maintenance and dark thoughts. I worked on Mrs. Patterson's Buick, serviced a few regular customers' vehicles, and tried not to think about what Jennifer and Tom were doing at their romantic cabin retreat. Every time my mind wandered in that direction, I forced myself to focus on the future instead of the present. By Sunday evening, I had a plan. Not just for revenge. That was too simple, too crude. What I needed was justice. A reckoning that would leave Jennifer and Tom facing the consequences of their choices while I emerged with my dignity intact and my future secure. Jennifer came home around 8 o'clock, glowing with satisfaction and fake sisterly bonding stories. She'd brought me a bag of homemade cookies that she claimed Melissa had baked, though I noticed the price tag from a bakery was still stuck to the bottom of the container. "How was your weekend?" she asked, kissing my cheek with lips that had been kissing another man for the past 2 days. "Quiet. Got some work done, watched some baseball, bachelor stuff." "Well, I missed you," she said, and the casual cruelty of that lie made me want to laugh. "Missed you too. How's Melissa doing?" "Good, really good. She's thinking about getting back into dating." "That's nice. Everyone deserves to be happy." Jennifer smiled and headed upstairs to unpack, humming that same pop song under her breath. I waited until I heard the shower running, then went to my workshop and fired up my laptop. Time for Phase 3. I started with Tom Bradley's social media accounts, studying his patterns and preferences. The kid was a narcissist who documented every meal, every workout, every minor achievement. His Instagram was a carefully curated shrine to his own supposed awesomeness, full of gym selfies and inspirational quotes about success and ambition. More importantly, it was a roadmap to his weaknesses. Tom Bradley was about to learn that some people fight back when you try to destroy their lives, and Jennifer was about to discover that her husband was a lot smarter than she'd given him credit for. The game was just beginning. Monday morning, I put my plan into motion with a simple phone call. Midwest Financial Services. How may I direct your call? Human Resources, please. One moment. While I waited for the transfer, I reviewed the folder of evidence I'd assembled over the weekend, photos of Jennifer and Tom at the cabin, printouts of their text messages, bank records showing the money transfers, and a detailed timeline of their affair. Everything I needed to destroy them both professionally and personally. Human Resources. This is Carol speaking. Hi, Carol. This is Mike Thompson. My wife Jennifer works there, and I need to speak with someone about a sensitive matter regarding workplace conduct. Oh, hello, Mr. Thompson. Jennifer's mentioned you many times. Is everything all right? The friendly concern in her voice almost made me feel guilty. Almost. I'm afraid not. I have evidence of an inappropriate relationship between Jennifer and Tom Bradley that's been going on for several months. I think someone in management should be aware of the situation. Silence on the other end, followed by the sound of rapid typing. Mr. Thompson, these are very serious allegations. Would you be willing to come in and speak with our director? Absolutely. When would be convenient? How about this afternoon at 2 o'clock? And Mr. Thompson, please bring any documentation you have. I'll be there. I hung up and smiled grimly. Jennifer thought she was so clever, conducting her affair right under her employer's nose. She'd forgotten that Midwest Financial had strict policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Even consensual affairs could result in disciplinary action or termination, especially when they involved someone in Jennifer's position of authority over Tom. At exactly 2 o'clock, I walked into the sleek glass building that housed Midwest Financial Services, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would end 2 careers and probably 2 relationships. The receptionist directed me to the 3rd floor, where I was met by Carol from HR and a stern-looking man in an expensive suit. Mr. Thompson, I'm David Halverson, Director of Human Resources. Thank you for coming in. We settled into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the city below. I could see Jennifer's office from here, though thankfully she wasn't visible at her desk. Before we begin, Halverson said, I want you to understand that we take these matters very seriously. Any evidence you provide will be thoroughly investigated, and if substantiated, appropriate action will be taken. I understand. I opened my briefcase and spread the contents across the conference table. Photos of Jennifer and Tom embracing in the parking lot, screenshots of their explicit text messages, bank records showing suspicious transfers, a detailed timeline of their affair, complete with dates, times, and locations. Carol gasped audibly when she saw the photos. Halverson's expression remained neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten as he examined the evidence. How did you obtain these communications? He asked. The text messages were on my wife's phone, which she left charging on my side of the bed. The financial records are from our joint accounts. The photographs were taken in public places where there was no expectation of privacy. Halverson nodded slowly. Mr. Thompson, I have to ask, what do you hope to accomplish by bringing this to our attention? I want my wife and her lover to face the consequences of their actions. They've violated your company's policies, abused their positions of trust, and caused significant harm to my family. I think your other employees deserve to work in an environment where supervisors don't prey on their subordinates. It was a good speech, and mostly true. I did want Jennifer and Tom to face consequences. But more than that, I wanted them to understand that actions have repercussions, that betraying someone's trust comes with a price. We'll need to conduct a full investigation, Halverson said. That will involve interviewing both Jennifer and Tom, as well as any witnesses who might have observed inappropriate behavior. Of course. In the meantime, I'm going to have to ask you not to discuss this matter with your wife or anyone else who might be involved in the investigation. I understand. We shook hands, and I left the building feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The wheels of justice were now in motion, and there was nothing Jennifer or Tom could do to stop them. I spent the rest of the afternoon at Ray's gym, working out my nervous energy on the heavy bag. Word had gotten around that I was back in training, and several of the regulars offered encouragement and advice. It felt good to be part of a community again, surrounded by people who understood that sometimes a man had to fight for what was right. How'd it go? Ray asked as I finished my workout. Better than expected. HR seemed very interested in what I had to show them. Good. What's next? Now we wait. And while we're waiting, I'm going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of people Jennifer and Tom really are. Ray grinned. I like the way you think. That evening, Jennifer came home in an unusually good mood, chattering about some project she and Tom were working on together. I made appropriate noises of interest while mentally calculating how much longer she'd be able to maintain her cheerful facade. Oh, by the way, she said as we sat down to dinner, Tom and I might have to work late a few nights this week. We're trying to finish the quarterly analysis before the board meeting. That's fine. I'll probably be spending more time at Ray's anyway. She looked up sharply. Ray's? The gym. I told you I was getting back into boxing. It's been really good for me, actually. Great stress relief. Right. I just didn't realize you were making it such a regular thing. Well, you know what they say. When life hits you hard, you learn to hit back. Jennifer's fork paused halfway to her mouth, and for just a moment I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. But then she smiled and changed the subject to something safe and domestic. After dinner, while she was upstairs on a work call that I knew was actually a romantic conversation with Tom, I made a few calls of my own. To Mrs. Patterson, whose Buick I'd been working on, to Jimmy Martinez at the gym, to my neighbor Dave, who worked at the bank where Jennifer had opened one of her secret accounts. I didn't tell them anything directly. That would have been crude and obvious. Instead, I just asked casual questions, made innocent observations, planted tiny seeds of doubt that would grow into full-blown gossip within days. Yeah, Jennifer's been working a lot of overtime lately. Really dedicated to her career, you know? That young guy Tom seems nice. Very attentive to Jennifer at the company picnic. Women today, they're so independent. Sometimes I wonder if they even need husbands anymore. By Wednesday morning, those seeds had sprouted into a network of whispered conversations and knowing looks. Ray reported that several people had asked him about Jennifer's work situation. Mrs. Patterson mentioned that her bridge club was concerned about my marriage. Dave from the bank let slip that some folks were wondering about unusual account activity. The beauty of small-town gossip was that it spread like wildfire without anyone having to tell outright lies. People drew their own conclusions, filled in the blanks with their own assumptions, and before long, the truth became common knowledge without anyone having to prove anything. On Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Thompson, this is David Halverson from Midwest Financial. Could you come in tomorrow morning? We've completed our investigation, and I'd like to discuss the results with you. Of course. What time? 9 o'clock, if that works for you. I'll be there. Friday morning, I arrived at Midwest Financial to find the parking lot buzzing with unusual activity. Several employees were clustered near the entrance, talking in hushed tones and checking their phones constantly. I recognized a few faces from company events Jennifer had dragged me to over the years. Halverson met me in the lobby, his expression grim. Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming in. I'm afraid I have some difficult news. We walked to his office in silence, passing Jennifer's workspace. Her desk was empty, personal items gone, computer dark. Tom's cubicle was similarly abandoned. Based on our investigation, Halverson said once we were seated, we found substantial evidence supporting your allegations. Both Jennifer and Tom have been terminated for violation of company policy regarding workplace relationships and abuse of authority. I see. Additionally, we discovered evidence of financial irregularities involving expense accounts and unauthorized use of company resources. We've referred that matter to local authorities for further investigation. My heart jumped. I hadn't expected that development, but it made sense. If Jennifer and Tom had been using company money to fund their affair, hotel rooms, dinners, weekend trips, that would constitute fraud. What happens now? That's up to the district attorney's office. But Mr. Thompson, I want you to know that we appreciate you bringing this matter to our attention. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable, and we're committed to maintaining a professional work environment for all our employees. I shook Halverson's hand and left the building, my mind reeling with the implications. Jennifer and Tom hadn't just lost their jobs, they were facing potential criminal charges. The Mike situation had just become a lot more complicated than they'd bargained for. My phone was ringing as I got to my car. Jennifer's number. Mike, we need to talk. Right now. Her voice was shaking, whether from rage or fear, I couldn't tell. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at home. And Mike, you have no idea what you've done? Actually, I had a pretty good idea, and I was just getting started. Jennifer's car was already in the driveway when I arrived home, parked at an angry angle that suggested she'd been in a hurry. I found her in the kitchen, still wearing her business suit but looking disheveled and desperate. Her carefully applied makeup was smudged, and her hands were shaking as she gripped a cup of coffee. You bastard, she said without looking up. You vindictive, petty bastard. Good afternoon to you too, honey. She whirled around, her eyes blazing with fury. Don't you dare act innocent. I know what you did. Going to my company, spreading lies, trying to destroy my career. I didn't spread any lies. I simply provided evidence of what you and Tom have been doing for the past 6 months. Evidence you obtained illegally. Those text messages, those photos. You had no right. I sat down at the kitchen table, deliberately calm in the face of her rage. Actually, I had every right. The messages were on a phone registered to our joint account. The photos were taken in public places, and the financial records are from accounts with my name on them. Jennifer's composure cracked completely. She sank into the chair across from me, her face pale and drawn. They fired us both, she whispered. 15 years with that company, and they fired me like I was some kind of criminal. Aren't you? What's that supposed to mean? Halverson mentioned financial irregularities, unauthorized use of company resources. Sounds like you and Tom were spending more than just your own money on your little romance. The color drained from her face entirely. Mike, you don't understand. It wasn't like that. Then explain it to me. Help me understand how my wife of 15 years decided that our marriage was worth less than a few afternoons with a pretty boy who's young enough to be her son. Jennifer buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. It just happened, she said finally. Tom was going through a rough patch, needed someone to talk to. I was trying to help him, and things got complicated. Complicated? Is that what we're calling it? I never meant for it to go this far. I kept telling myself I'd end it, that I'd figure out how to fix things with us. But Tom was so attentive, so interested in everything I had to say. He made me feel alive again. And I made you feel what? Bored? Trapped? She looked up at me then, tears streaming down her cheeks. You made me feel invisible. When was the last time you really looked at me, Mike? Really saw me? You come home covered in grease, grunt hello, eat dinner in front of the TV, and fall asleep in your chair. I felt like I was disappearing. Her words hit harder than I expected. There was truth in them, painful truth that I'd been avoiding for months. Our marriage had been coasting on autopilot, both of us going through the motions without really connecting, but that didn't justify what she'd done. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to have an affair. Instead of working on our marriage, you chose to betray it. I made a mistake, she said desperately. A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over, rebuild what we had. What we had is gone, Jennifer. You threw it away the first time you let Tom touch you. Please, Mike, I'm begging you, don't let one mistake destroy 15 years of marriage. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and tried to find some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. She was still beautiful, still the smartest person I knew, still capable of making my heart race when she smiled. But she was also a stranger, a woman who could lie to my face for months, steal money from our accounts, and betray every promise she'd ever made to me. It wasn't one mistake, I said quietly. It was hundreds of them. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you came home and pretended to love me while you were planning your escape. You didn't make a mistake, Jennifer. You made a choice. My phone buzzed with a text message. Tom's number. We need to talk, all three of us. There are things you don't know. I showed the message to Jennifer, whose face went white. What does he mean, things I don't know? I have no idea, but I guess we're about to find out. 20 minutes later, Tom Bradley stood in my living room looking like a man facing execution. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by desperate anxiety that made him seem younger and more vulnerable than his 28 years. Mike, I want you to know how sorry I am, he began. What Jennifer and I did was wrong, and I take full responsibility for my part in it. How noble of you. But there are things about this situation that you need to understand, things that Jennifer doesn't even know. I glanced at my wife, who was watching Tom with growing alarm. I'm listening. Tom took a deep breath. The reason I got involved with Jennifer wasn't just attraction or loneliness. I was being blackmailed. Blackmailed by whom? Your sister-in-law, Melissa. The room went silent. Jennifer stared at Tom like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. That's impossible, she whispered. Melissa would never. She found out about my gambling debts, Tom continued, about the money I owed to some very dangerous people. She offered to help me pay them off, but only if I seduced Jennifer and convinced her to leave you. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Why would Melissa want Jennifer to leave me? Because she's been in love with you for years, Tom said miserably. She figured if Jennifer was out of the picture, she'd have a chance with you. She orchestrated the whole thing. Jennifer stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward. You're lying. Melissa is my sister. She would never do something like that. Check your phone, Tom said. The messages I sent you, the romantic stuff, the plans for our future together. Melissa wrote most of them. She told me exactly what to say, when to say it, how to make you fall for me. With shaking hands, Jennifer pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her message history with Tom. As she read, her expression changed from disbelief to horror to rage. She knew, Jennifer whispered. She knew about the cabin, about our weekend together. She even knew what wine you were going to bring. She planned everything, Tom confirmed. The timing, the locations, even suggested I take you to my family's cabin because she knew Mike would eventually find out and follow us there. I sank back into my chair, my mind reeling. Melissa had played us all like pieces on a chessboard, manipulating our emotions and desires to achieve her own twisted goals. She'd destroyed my marriage, ruined Jennifer's career, and used Tom as her unwitting weapon. The money, I said suddenly. The $15,000 Jennifer moved from our accounts. Where did that go? Tom's face crumpled. To pay off my gambling debts. Melissa said it was necessary to keep me focused on the plan. She promised to pay it all back once you and Jennifer were divorced, and she could console you through the breakup. And you went along with this? You destroyed my marriage for money? They were going to hurt me, Tom said desperately. These weren't just bookies, Mike. These were serious people who don't accept excuses. I was scared. So you decided to ruin 3 lives instead of facing your own problems like a man. Tom had no answer for that. Jennifer was still staring at her phone, tears streaming down her face. She's my sister, she kept repeating. How could she do this to me? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had consumed everything we'd built together. My marriage was over, Jennifer's career was destroyed, Tom was facing criminal charges, and it had all been orchestrated by someone we'd trusted completely. But as I sat there surrounded by the wreckage of my life, I realized something important. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the only one who'd figured out the game before it was too late, and that meant I was the only one who could decide how it ended. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. Jennifer, you're going to pack your things and move out. Today. I'll file for divorce on Monday, and you're not going to contest it. Mike, please. Tom, you're going to cooperate fully with the district attorney's investigation. You're going to plead guilty to whatever charges they bring, and you're going to make full restitution for the money you stole. Tom nodded miserably. And Melissa? I smiled grimly. Melissa is going to learn that some games have consequences she never saw coming. Jennifer looked up at me with desperate hope in her eyes. What are you going to do? I'm going to give her exactly what she wanted, I said, and then I'm going to make sure she regrets ever wanting it. The final phase of my revenge was about to begin. Saturday morning, I called Melissa. Mike, what a surprise. How are you holding up? Jennifer told me about the problems at her work. The fake concern in her voice made my skin crawl. She was still playing her role, still pretending to be the supportive sister-in-law who just wanted what was best for everyone. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I was hoping we could talk, in person. Of course. You know I'm always here for you. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? I'll cook that pot roast you like. That sounds perfect. 7 o'clock? I'll see you then. I spent the day preparing for what would be the most important performance of my life. Everything depended on convincing Melissa that her plan had worked, that I was the broken, vulnerable man she expected me to be. Ray helped me set up recording equipment, tiny cameras and microphones that would capture everything Melissa said. If she was going to confess to orchestrating the destruction of my marriage, I wanted it documented. You sure about this? Ray asked as we tested the equipment. This woman sounds dangerous. She destroyed my marriage and ruined my wife's career just to get to me. She's already dangerous. What if she doesn't confess? What if she keeps playing innocent? Then I'll make her an offer she can't refuse. Melissa's apartment was in the trendy downtown district, a converted loft that probably cost more than my mortgage. She answered the door wearing a black dress that was just a little too tight, a little too low-cut for a casual dinner between family members. Mike, you look terrible, she said, pulling me into a hug that lasted longer than necessary. You poor thing. Come in, sit down. Let me get you a drink. The apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Modern furniture, expensive art, everything designed to impress. Melissa had always been obsessed with status and appearances, which made her jealousy of Jennifer's marriage to a blue-collar mechanic even more twisted. Whiskey? She asked, already pouring 2 glasses. Thanks. She sat down next to me on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume. I want you to know how sorry I am about everything that's happened. Jennifer made such a terrible mistake. I still can't believe it. 15 years of marriage, and she throws it all away for some kid at her office. Men like Tom Bradley prey on vulnerable women, Melissa said, her hand finding my arm. Jennifer was going through a midlife crisis, questioning her choices, feeling unappreciated. He took advantage of that. Maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe if I'd been a better husband. Don't you dare blame yourself, Melissa interrupted, moving even closer. You're a good man, Mike. You deserved better than what Jennifer gave you. I let my shoulders slump, playing the part of the defeated husband. I don't know what I'm going to do now. The house feels so empty. The business doesn't seem to matter anymore. I feel like my whole life just fell apart. You're going to rebuild, Melissa said softly. You're going to find someone who appreciates you, who sees what an amazing man you really are. Her hand was stroking my arm now, and she was looking at me with an expression that was supposed to be comforting but came across as predatory. I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think I'll ever trust anyone again. You will, she said confidently. When the right person comes along, you'll know. Someone who's been waiting for you. Someone who's always seen your worth. There it was, the opening I'd been waiting for. Melissa, can I ask you something? And please be honest. Of course. Did you know about Jennifer and Tom before I found out? She hesitated for just a moment, and I saw calculation flicker across her face. I suspected something was wrong. Jennifer seemed different, distracted. But I never imagined she'd actually have an affair. But you didn't tell me. I didn't want to hurt you with suspicions. I kept hoping I was wrong. I nodded sadly, taking another sip of whiskey. Tom said something strange when he came to the house yesterday. He claimed that someone put him up to seducing Jennifer, that it was all part of some elaborate plan. Melissa's entire body went rigid. That's ridiculous. Why would anyone do something like that? I don't know, but he seemed pretty convinced. Said this person had been manipulating the whole situation from the beginning. Tom Bradley is a desperate man facing criminal charges, Melissa said quickly. He'll say anything to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. You're probably right. It just seems so specific, you know? He even claimed this person was in love with me and wanted Jennifer out of the way. I watched Melissa's face carefully as I spoke, noting the way her pupils dilated and her breathing quickened. She was trying to maintain her innocent facade, but I could see the panic building behind her eyes. That's absurd, she said, but her voice was strained. Who would do something so elaborate and cruel? Someone who was very patient, very smart, someone who knew all of us well enough to predict how we'd react. Melissa stood up abruptly, walking to the window with her back to me. Mike, you're scaring me. You sound paranoid. Maybe I am. Maybe losing my wife has made me see conspiracies where none exist. I joined her at the window, standing close enough that she could feel my presence. Or maybe Tom was telling the truth. She turned to face me, and for the first time I saw the real Melissa. Not the concerned sister-in-law or the supportive friend, but the calculating woman who'd orchestrated the destruction of my marriage. What do you want, Mike? I want the truth. We stared at each other for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. She could continue the charade, keep playing innocent, hope that I'd never be able to prove anything, or she could take a different approach. You want the truth? She said finally. Fine. Yes, I orchestrated the whole thing. I found out about Tom's gambling debts and used them to manipulate him into seducing Jennifer. I wrote his romantic messages, planned their meetings, even suggested the cabin weekend because I knew you'd follow them there. The relief of finally hearing her confession was overwhelming, but I kept my expression neutral. Why? Because you were wasted on her, Melissa said, her voice rising with passion. Jennifer never appreciated you, never saw what an incredible man you are. She treated you like furniture, took you for granted, made you feel small and insignificant. You deserved so much better. So you decided to destroy my marriage. I decided to free you from a woman who didn't deserve you. She stepped closer, her eyes burning with feverish intensity, her voice low and insistent. I've loved you from the moment Jennifer brought you into our lives. I watched you fall for her, marry her, and then watched her chip away at your soul for 15 long years. You stayed with her, loyal and patient, while she tore you down. I couldn't sit by any longer and watch it happen. I had to do something. You ruined 3 lives for your own selfish desires, I replied, my voice calm but shaking with disbelief at the weight of her confession. I saved you, she shouted, her voice rising with passion, her eyes now wild with a kind of manic fervor. Jennifer was never going to change. She was never going to be the wife you needed, the woman who would stand by you and support you. She didn't have it in her. Tom was just a tool, a means to an end. He was a necessary pawn in this game, and yes, I used him, but let's be clear, he got paid well for his part in it. That money was a small price to pay for what I did for you, for the future I'm offering you now. I felt a sharp pang of anger and disbelief cut through me. The $15,000, I said slowly, as though the words themselves left a bitter taste in my mouth. That was your price for my freedom, for the life you want me to believe we could have together? She didn't flinch. A small price to pay for your freedom, she repeated, her voice softening just a little as she stepped closer to me, her eyes now searching mine with an almost pleading look. She reached out to touch my face, her fingers brushing my skin as she spoke again. Now we can finally be together, Mike. Now you can have the love you've always deserved, the love that was always meant to be yours. I took a step back, my hand instinctively reaching for my phone. Actually, Melissa, I said, my voice steely, what I deserve is justice. Her eyes flicked down to my phone, and in that instant, I saw the color drain from her face. You recorded me? Her voice cracked with a mix of fear and disbelief. Every word, I replied coldly, my thumb hitting the button to open the recording app. Tomorrow, I'm turning this over to the district attorney, along with all the evidence of your manipulation, your conspiracy to destroy my marriage, and your financial dealings with Tom. You can't do this to me, Melissa's voice broke as she took a step toward me, her hands trembling. I did it for you. I did it for us. I wanted to help you. You did it for yourself, I said, my words biting. You destroyed my marriage, ruined Jennifer's career, and used Tom like a puppet because you couldn't handle being rejected. You don't get to turn this around and act like you were doing this for me. Her composure finally shattered, her face contorting with rage and desperation. She lunged at me, her hands reaching for my phone, her body shaking with emotion. She screamed at me, calling me ungrateful, accusing me of making a huge mistake. I easily sidestepped her, the panic in her eyes only serving to reinforce how far she had fallen from the woman I thought I knew. Goodbye, Melissa, I said, my voice low but firm. I hope it was worth it. I turned and walked out of her apartment, the sound of breaking glass and her hysterical sobbing echoing in my ears as I left behind the woman who had destroyed everything. The next morning, I walked into the district attorney's office, carrying everything I had meticulously gathered. A complete record of Melissa's confession, her financial manipulation of Tom, and all the evidence of her orchestrated scheme to destroy my marriage. The prosecutor's eyes widened as he looked over the documents I laid before him. This is quite a case, Mr. Thompson, he said, his tone serious but impressed. Conspiracy, fraud, emotional manipulation. There are several charges we can make stick with this. I just want justice, I replied, my voice steady but my heart still heavy with the weight of it all. You'll get it, the prosecutor said, nodding. We'll make sure of it. Later that day, as I stood in my shop, I watched through the window as police cars pulled up to Melissa's apartment building. She was arrested, charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal manipulation, and accessory to embezzlement. The local news picked up the story, and by evening, everyone in town knew about the twisted plot that had torn apart one of their own families. Jennifer called me that night. Her voice was broken, the sound of her sobbing filling the line. I can't believe she did this to us. My own sister, she said, her voice trembling with disbelief. Neither can I replied quietly, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. But now you know the truth? Mike, Jennifer said, her voice desperate, now that we know everything, maybe we can try again. Maybe we can rebuild what we had. I want to fix this. I want to fix us. I paused, the weight of her words sinking in. Jennifer had been a victim in her own right. She was manipulated, used as a pawn in Melissa's cruel game, but despite that, she still chose to betray our marriage. She still lied to me, took money from our accounts, and shared intimate moments with another man. Melissa might have orchestrated the situation, but Jennifer had made the choice to participate. No, I said, my voice steady but firm. We can't go back. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. We're done, Jennifer. Please, Mike, she begged, her voice breaking. I love you. I've always loved you. I know you do, I said quietly, but love isn't enough anymore. I hung up, the finality of the conversation settling over me. I poured myself a whiskey, sitting alone in my empty house, surrounded by the remnants of my old life. Tomorrow I would start building a new one, but for tonight, I allowed myself to sit in the silence and savor my victory. The Mike situation had been handled all right, just not the way anyone expected.